Amy, calling the meeting to order. Amy, please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. DeLumo? Mr. Malta?
Here.
Mr. Manel?
Here.
Mr. Good? Mr. Van Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Worrell?
Here.
Ms. Spiel?
Here.
Mr. Mamie?
Here.
Mr. Ashkenazi?
Here.
Chairman Shephaka?
Here. I won't ask you to stand, but I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed with the Office of the Township Clerk on July 27, 2020. Board policy: no new cases will be started after 10 p.m. No new testimony will be taken after 10:30. In addition,
Can somebody bring down my iPad? I need it.
no new cases will be started after 10 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 10:30. In addition, the applicant will be limited to 45 minutes of testimony. Notice: all meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean's community cable channel, channel 22, and Verizon Fios, channel 77 in Cablevision. Resolutions and memorializations. Mark, can I read them all at once? Mark, you have to turn on your microphone.
There you go, Mark.
Amy, I believe they all have the same vote.
Yes, okay. Michael and
Yep.
Kathleen Nair, block 33.01, lot 1, 536 Apple Drive, Oakhurst, bulk variance approval. Fahara and Rebecca Salome, block 22, lot 44.02, 249 Overbrook Avenue, Oakhurst, bulk variance approval. LIPAC LLC, block 216, lot 15 and 16, 1501 Allen Avenue, Wanamassa, modification to private approval. Joseph and Lynn Maloney, block 3, lot 49, 40 Branch Road, Oakhurst, block bulk variance approval. Alan Barsano, block 40.01, lot 11, 14 Dwight Drive, Ocean, bulk variance approval. Somebody please offer.
Worrell offers.
I need a second.
Second, West.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner? Van Wagner?
I think I saw his block exit. He might have
Oh,
got
did
cut
he go? Okay. Mr. Worrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Mamie?
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka?
Yes. Okay, there are zoning board rules that I read last month. Everyone is, they've been read in. You will have 5 minutes to speak once. I'm not going to read them again. Thank you very much. So I'm going to move on. Cases carried to March 11th, 20. Yes.
Henry, we would like to have I'm going to ask Mark, but I think we should have a resolution. We introduced these minutes last time. I'd like to have them voted into the record, so at a later date, we won't have any problems.
Okay. The zoning board rules that I read in last month, I need someone to offer.
Worrell offers. Malta second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
yes,
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd,
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Case
Thank
is
you.
carried to March 11th, 2021, 6 PM via Zoom. Hillel School Block 34.03, Lot 2, 2.01, 2 and 2.01, Lot 5.01, and Lot 5.02, and Lot 6, 1025 Deal Road, Ocean. Case is carried to March 18th. Morris Dweck, Block 43, Lot 1 and 2, Block 300 Parker Avenue, Deal Park. I'm sorry. Kenneth Greenstein, Block 22, Lot 90, 204 West Morgan Avenue, Ocean. William Larkin, Block 25.07, Lot 12, 190 Belmar Avenue, Oakhurst. 2112 Highway 35 Associates LLC, Block 3.01, Lot 6, 7, 8. 2112 Highway 35 Ocean. Michael Klein, Patricia Cronum, Block 72, Lot 1, 486 Stafford Street, Ocean. David Mizrahi, Block 12.05, Lot 14, 269 Lawrence Avenue, Ocean. Nathan Mann, Block 204, Lot 4, 1400 Highway 35 Ocean. Morris and Marcy Tibble, block 17, lot 29, 225 Lewis Street, Ocean. Andrew and Darlene Childs, block 124, lot 3, 1304 Sunset Avenue, Wanamassa. Jeffrey Barnes, block 33.13, lot 3, 8 Klein Street, Oakhurst. And Seaview Square Corporate Park, block 149.01, lot 1.01, 2603 Route 66 Ocean, Zone 011/20, carried to March 18th. And also, I guess, Amy, it's because of not noticing, right? Case 6?
That's right, yes.
Jesse Schomer, block 12.06, lot 4, 9 Burger Avenue, Ocean, R4. Those cases are all carried to March 18th.
And Mr. Chairman, there will not be any further public notice for all the carried cases except for Schomer, I believe, right?
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, also for Hillel will be renoticed.
Okay?
Well, Hillel's going to be renoticed to a special meeting night.
Right.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure the record was clear that there will be renotice on Hillel because there was some discussion at the last meeting about that issue.
All right?
Right, but that case was carried to March 11th, not March 18th.
Right.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Correct.
All the other cases, including Seaview Corporate Park, will not have any further notice and will be on the agenda for March 18th, except for Jesse Schomer, which has to correct its deficient notice.
Correct. Thank you. Which brings us to case 3, which is Gabby Shama, block 60, lot 45, 3 Millwyn Court, Ocean. This is an application to keep a 6-foot high fence constructed in a front yard. The fence was installed on the neighbor's property at 1 Millwyn Court. Attorney for the applicant, Jennifer Krimko.
Good evening,
Hey,
Mr. Shepaka,
Krimko,
members
how
of the
are you?
board. Good. Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Griminau on behalf of the applicant. The description in the agenda is not 100% accurate. There is one small portion that extends onto the neighbor's yard, which connects to the neighbor's existing fence. So the majority of the fence was constructed on the owner's property. We did include the neighbor's property, though, in our application, and we included them in the notice, since a portion of it does extend onto their yard. And we do have their permission to pursue this application, as well as their signed permission given to the zoning officer for the encroachment.
Okay, that's noted. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Ms. Krimko,
Thank you.
please
So-
proceed.
Thank you. So I'd like to move a few items into evidence.
Oh, can we, I tell you what, we have 2 reports, right? Can we, you want to hear let me hear the reports first, and then we'll move in, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you switched that procedure, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Jen, this is Jim, and I noticed in the packet, it's not my most recent report, and I just realized I never emailed it to Amy. So I have a
Oh,
more
then-
recent report for February 12th. So let me read that into the record so
Yeah,
that the
I
record.
think it's important because it gives background that I don't have, so
Yeah,
that would be
that's
great.
fine. And just so the board understands, when they originally submitted the application, they submitted it only for 3 Millwyn Court, which is block 60, lot 45. And the fence does extend about 9 feet onto the adjacent property, which is 1 Millwyn Court. And so my initial report said that you really need to include that other property in the application, and you should screen both walls, both fences equally from Wickapeco Drive. But
Jim,
let me read
before you start though, could I just ask Amy if I can share my screen? I'll put up the survey so the public will understand it. I know that the board members probably have it in their packet, but I'd like it to be on the screen for the public. Because your report won't make sense otherwise, I don't think.
Okay,
There we go. Can everybody see that?
No, I got it. I'm good
Okay,
now.
great. Thank
Okay.
you. And just for the record, that'll be A1, that's the as-built survey.
Okay, so let me start reading my report into the record. It was dated February 12th, 2021. The applicant is requesting permission to maintain an existing 6-foot-high solid fence that has been constructed in a required front yard of lot 45 and extends partially on adjacent lot 46 to meet the existing fence on lot 46. The fence is set back 10 feet from the property line and has a length of approximately 175 feet along the Logan Road frontage of lot 45 and extends approximately 9 feet into adjacent lot 46 to the south in order to meet an existing 6-foot-high fence wall on that lot. Lot 45 is a 31,649 square foot through lot with frontage on both Millwyn Court and Wickapeco Drive. It is occupied by a single-family residence that faces Millwyn Court, a swimming pool, decking, and patios, and associated fencing. Lot 46 is an approximate 30,000 square foot lot with frontages on Wickapeco Drive, Millwyn Gate Road, and Millwyn Court. Lot 46 received board approval in 2002 to construct a 6-foot-high wall fence at the same setback along Logan Road. That resolution of approval was based in part on a finding of fact that the property is surrounded by a large existing row of mature hedges followed by a decorative wrought iron fence, which will remain and screen the wall from view from the entrance to the development and along Wickapeco Drive. The row of mature hedges no longer exists, and the fence wall on adjacent lot 46, as well as the existing proposed fence on subject lot 45, are now plainly visible from Wickapeco Drive. The mature hedge on adjacent lot 44 to the north remains largely intact. It should be noted that the current owner of lot 46 was not the owner of that property when it received board approval in 2002. The lots are in an area of similar single-family residences. The zoning ordinance, section 23-48.3, limits the height of any fence in a front yard to 4 feet and the height of any solid fence in a front yard to 3 feet. The ordinance also limits the height of any hedge in a front yard to 4 feet. The required front yard setback is 30 feet and the proposed fence is located 10 feet from the front property line so that the variances are necessary from these requirements. In addition, the ordinance has the following requirements for a through lot. Section 2147.1.d.2, which is the required buffer on residential through lots, says on any residential through lot, a minimum 10-foot wide buffer shall be required along the street frontage at the architectural rear of the building if the street is classified as other than a minor street in the master plan. The buffer shall comply with standards for a buffer as set forth in this chapter. Wickapeco is other than a minor street. It's a collector street in the master plan. So you're required to have a buffer, 10-foot wide buffer along the property line. And then another section, 21-55-1H, buffer planting requirements, says planting in all required buffer areas shall consist of a minimum of 2 staggered rows of evergreen trees spaced 10 feet apart and planted 10 feet on center, except that in buffer areas less than 15 feet wide, a single row of evergreen trees planted 8 feet on center shall be required. Additional planting materials and/or fencing may be required by the municipal agency to supplement the 2 rows of evergreen trees, but not replace them. The requirement for 2 rows of evergreen trees may be reduced by the municipal agency if substantial existing vegetation is located within the buffer area, and the strict enforcement of this section would result in the loss or damage to the existing vegetation or would be impractical as determined by the municipal agency. In addition, the subject Lot 45 is part of the Millwinds Farm subdivision approval in 1986. That approval included a specific landscape plan that provided a solid privet hedge around the perimeter of the development, including the above referenced hedge, which was planted around 1990 and had matured by the time the 2000 approval for the fence wall on Lot 46. And on Wickapeco Drive, along the frontage of lots 45 and 46. Besides the issues of the fence being constructed without proper permits and partially on adjacent lot 46, there's a contradiction in the ordinance with regard to the requirements on through lots. The ordinance requires that both street frontages on through lots be front yards and they maintain the required front yard setbacks on both frontages. It also limits the height of a solid fence in a front yard to 3 feet and height of a hedge to 4 feet. However, the ordinance also requires that a through lot's frontage at the architectural rear of the building, which in this instance is the Wickapeco Drive frontage, maintain a 10-foot wide buffer that should be planted with a single row of evergreen trees planted 8 feet on centers. That constitutes a hedge, and since it is required to be planted within the evergreen trees and intended to be a buffer, it's clear that the height will be more than 4 feet. So the applicant's really caught between a rock and a hard place here because there's a contradiction in the ordinance. The matter is further complicated by the fact that while the perimeter hedge along Corley's Avenue is largely intact, it is also located within an approximate 30-foot wide buffer area that is owned by the homeowners association. The hedge along Wickapeco Drive on lots 44, 45, and 46 is actually on the rear portion of those lots and not on a separate parcel owned by the homeowners association. There does not appear to be any easement associated with this area or hedge. And again, the hedge doesn't exist anymore on lots 45 and 46, but it does exist on 44. Based on the above, I have the following recommendations if the board is inclined to approve the application. Planning be required within the 8-foot wide area between the decorative iron fence and the property line. That planning should consist of 24 evergreen trees spaced evenly on centers at a minimum height of 3 feet 6 inches. This planning should extend from the northwestern corner of the fence on lot 45 to the southwestern corner of the fence wall on lot 46. I recommend columnar hollies such as Arcadian red holly, which, while technically a shrub, will grow to a height of 12 to 14 feet and will give the appearance of a small tree and form a hardy and low maintenance screen of the 6-foot high fence. And just by way of explanation, I chose a height of 3 feet 6 inches because I was recommending the hollies, and the hollies are much more expensive than other typical evergreen trees, but the hollies are also deer resistant. I think that's a major consideration. So they would go into a height at 3 feet 6 inches, and they would grow up gradually and screen the entire fence.
Jim, Henry, I have one question. Okay. Number one,
Yes.
Jim, you can submit that report to Amy tomorrow?
Yes,
It
I will.
was submitted to Amy, wasn't it? No?
No, it was not. I
That was
checked,
not.
I checked my emails and I thought I had sent it to her and I did not.
Okay, and send me a copy. Okay.
Yes, I will. Yeah. absolutely.
Secondly, you refer to Logan Road. Where's Logan Road on this?
What?
No, Wickapeco, not Logan.
Echo, did I say Logan?
It is in your your previous report, which I read. It also says
Really?
Logan.
Okay, yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
could, when you send it,
Yeah,
when you send it back in, could you change?
yeah. I think it was.
I was looking all through the packet and through the plans that were sent to us. I couldn't find Logan.
Is there a report from Bill? Since he's
Yeah,
There
there is
is,
a
and
report from Bill.
I'll just point out in Bill's report, Jim, 3B doesn't apply. I spoke with
Yeah,
Bill. He
Absolutely, yeah.
didn't realize that we had amended the application.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Bill and I are a slight disagreement on this. He's not happy with it. He thinks that the fence is not, is aesthetically unattractive. I agree with that, which is why I recommended the screen in front of the fence to screen the fence off. And he feels that the board made a mistake when it approved the fence on the adjacent lot in 2002, but that's done already. But my reasoning is extending the fence to meet the existing fence on lot 46, I believe it is, eliminates a situation where if the applicant were to take the fence and keep it on his property and then extend it back along his side property line, there would be a 9-foot wide gap between the two properties on the fences on the two properties. And I think that would be an unacceptable situation. It would be a difficult maintenance situation. So I think it would
Okay.
be better to have the fences.
And Jim,
merged with one
Jim,
another.
to go one step further, just to ask you, if it wasn't extended on the adjacent lot, the board wouldn't have jurisdiction over the adjacent lot and would be in no position to mandate plantings on the adjacent lot since it wasn't part of the original approval, correct?
That's true. That's true.
So this is the board's opportunity to fix the wrong that there was no easement and no requirement for plantings.
Okay,
May
Ms.
I?
Krumko,
Okay.
tell
you.
us, tell
Okay,
us.
so I want to just move a couple more things in if I can, Mr. Shepaga.
Sure.
So I'm gonna share my screen again. Let's go back to the same screen and I'll move some things in. And when you see it, you'll agree the existing fence is relatively unattractive. Not that it's an unattractive fence, but it's unattractive right up against the street. So what you're looking at now is a picture that I took. It's looking north on Wickapeco. And I'll move that in as that one I'm gonna move in as A3 because A2 is gonna be an aerial. And as you can see, there's this existing fence that's about 8
Correct.
feet from the property line. The new fence is here. What's interesting is that when my client got a permit to put in a pool, it only had the existing 4-foot fence shown and no pool compliant fence. Now, while the 4-foot fence is pool compliant for the state purposes, your ordinance actually requires a 5-foot fence. So this issue would have come up had it been flagged that they didn't have an ordinance compliant fence. And then there would have been the question as to where to put this 5-foot fence, in this case, 6 feet. So in any event, this is looking, and that's correct. The area where my cursor is here, that's gravel, that it has been cleared and that is all on my client's property. As A4, it's a picture that I took as well. It's looking south. And what you can see is where our fence connects with the adjacent wall. And that's why my client put the fence where it was and thought that he was allowed to because it just matched up with the one that was existing. And as you can see, there are some large trees that still exist off of lot 46. On lot 46, however, it's sparse and you can see the wall through it. And then lastly, as A2, and just because I wrote it down that way, is an aerial from Google Earth. And this is the subject property where my cursor is. And this is lot 46. And these are the only 2 lots that would have this scenario where the pool, where the backyard actually fronts up against Wickapeco. As you look in this aerial, The other one on the corner of the entry into Millwyn, that's the side yard. The rear yard actually is up against Corley's and the basin. And then the only other lot in the Millwyn subdivision that is technically a through lot or a corner lot is Caddy Corner, so that's really the side yard also. So we're really only talking about these 2 lots. It's a pretty unique situation as it relates to the Millwyn subdivision. So
Jen,
Yeah.
1 second. I need you to provide these to Amy because she
I will
doesn't have
100%.
them.
I will.
Okay.
I will email them as soon as we hang up.
Okay.
I'll email all of them. So that's A2. And then going back to the as-built survey, and I don't know if the board can see it well, so I'm going to blow it up a little bit. There's the existing 4-foot aluminum fence that's
Correct.
on Wickapeco, and then the new fence in between. And there's 10 feet in between, but there appears to be more than about 5 feet the sidewalk to the actual roadway. We are 100% on board with the plantings that were recommended by Jim. We would like it for our privacy and noise buffering and the like. We have the agreement of the neighbor who owns the property next door, who has also agreed that we can do the plantings on their property. So as I'd indicated, the huge benefit that you get from this application is that you have the existing fence, or I should say solid wall, that's in a somewhat deteriorated condition on the adjacent lot 46, and you don't really have any mechanism with which to require landscaping to buffer it. By granting this variance, you not only are getting the landscaping on this lot, but you have the ability to mandate the landscaping on lot 46 also, and that it be maintained because lot 46 is also a applicant or as part of this application. So I think.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
You have a letter from the other homeowner that.
I do.
Okay,
I do.
you'll give that to Amy?
Amy has it. I have the owner's certification as well as, and then the last thing is because this is a through lot, you know, in order to have a 5-foot fence that complies with your ordinance, it would have to be set back 30 feet, which would effectively render this rear yard unusable. So it's the applicant's position. There's a hardship that it's a through lot. It's no real impact in that it's matching what's adjacent to the south. And by doing the buffering, it's not only mitigating the impact of the granting of this variance, but it's further mitigating the variance that was granted back in 2002, which the board no longer has jurisdiction over. So I really think it's as simple as that.
And just to add one additional thing, by adding the buffering that I've recommended along the back of the 2 properties, it actually eliminates a non-conforming condition because the ordinance requires buffering on this type of lot.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Krimko, anything else or are we good?
No, I don't have anything else, Mr. Shepherd.
Okay, questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Okay, now is the time for public questions. Anyone from the public here to be heard? If you are, please raise your hand, turn your microphone on. Okay, seeing that there's no questions from the public or the board, can I have a motion?
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Ms. Wenzel has a question, apparently.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Please
Yes.
state your name and address,
Jacqueline Wenzel Yunkun, 610 Deal Road.
and what is your relation to this case?
A resident of town. I drive Wickapeco. I don't know. I'm just paying attention. I guess my question is why can they move that fence back? I mean, so it's not so visible on the street. It looks like a big plastic fence. Aesthetically, it doesn't look so attractive. Can they move it closer to the pool?
The answer is, and what I had offered to the board in my legal argument is, the fence obviously could be moved. It would cut off the rear yard of the property, which would be a hardship in that this owner wouldn't be able to use their very large lot the same way a non-through lot property owner would be able to. And we believe that by the planting suggested by the planner, it will create a complete green buffer, which I'm quite surprised, knowing how much Ms. Wenzel loves trees, that she wouldn't be in favor for the planting of a significant amount of trees that would otherwise not be required if we moved the fence back. If we moved the fence back, you'd be looking at the same fence, only no trees.
So why don't they take then the wrought iron fence away? It kind of looks odd, the double fence, don't you think?
The wrought iron fence was a requirement of the original subdivision. And again, you're not going to see the wrought iron fence. It will be behind the trees. Both fences will be behind all of the trees. If you'd like to go on record and say you prefer we don't plant the trees, Ms. Wenzel, I'd love to hear that.
No, I'm not saying that. It's just sometimes I find a lot of these big plastic fences that are going up in town are not very attractive. I prefer.
Okay, well, again, that's a personal opinion and not necessarily relevant to the hardship that's being presented here, as well as the mitigating factors of bringing the buffer into conformity.
Ms. Kripko, excuse me, Jackie, the fence on lot 46, the solid fence is a concrete fence, isn't it?
Yes, and that one, the board has no jurisdiction over, and they can't require it to be moved since they already granted the variance. So that one is going to be stark for everybody to see unless we plant the buffer.
So the buffer will go along all of the street front.
That is correct.
And did I hear that part of the fence is on a neighbor's property or?
No.
No.
I thought I was pretty clear when I presented it, as I showed on the exhibit, and I can put it up again if you need me to. Our fence, and shown in the picture, extends to lot 46. So it extends on to lot 46 to the extent that it connects to their fence.
And they're okay with it?
For the third time, they are co-applicants. They signed owner certification authorizing the application, and they signed a letter to the zoning officer confirming that they are okay with it.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to close the public hearing. I need a motion.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing, Worrell.
Second,
Who is second?
Van Wagner.
Okay, Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Action, someone please.
I offer for a positive resolution.
I'll second. Manel?
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner, Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Ms. Krimko, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm here for the next one, but
I
thank you
know.
very much.
Our next case is Abraham Avakis, block 40, lot 75, 3 Green Terrace, Ocean, New Jersey, R2. This is an application to construct an in-ground pool within a designated 100-year floodplain with a 48-inch pool code fence located within 20-foot wide storm sewer easement. Attorney for the applicant, Ms. Krimko.
Thank you.
Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Higgins,
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Shepherd.
okay. Mr. Higgins, do you have a report?
Yeah, I do. It's very short.
Okay.
Basically, they want to construct a pool within a designated 100-year floodplain.
Right.
The variance is required. And it appears the entire site's located within the Harvey Brook floodway, so that there's clearly a hardship with regard to the property.
Right.
I don't really have any planning concerns with it. The zoning officer has noted that the portion of the proposed fence is located within a 20-foot wide storm sewer easement, and that public works approval will be required if the board approves the application. That should be a condition of approval if that is in fact the case. In addition, there are several pine trees that are going to be removed, so we need testimony as to whether or not those are trees that have a 9-inch caliber or greater, and if so, then a tree replacement, removal and replacement permit would be required. Bill has a report. He doesn't have any substantive issues with the proposal. He does comment that the applicant's plan appears to comply with the NJDEP permit by rule for in-ground pool construction in a flood hazard area. He said approval of the board should be contingent upon the applicant's plan being revised to, 1, denote the FHA, which is flood hazard area limits by area using elevations provided by the NJDEP and the above referenced verification, which there was a letter that the applicant submitted that was a verification from NJDEP, and to provide a detail, the open metal picket fence that would be required by NJDEP. In addition, with regard to the issue of the fence and the existing drainage easement, he feels that's an issue between the applicant and the governing body, and that the board doesn't have any jurisdiction over that.
Thank you.
I have one
Thank you.
question.
So
I have a question. The last application, you said you needed a 5
I'm going to address that, Mark.
What guy?
Whoa. So, go ahead.
I'm going to address that. So again, Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Griminarin here on behalf of the applicant. And I wanted to point out that at the time the plot plan was drawn, the problem is that the pool code for the state requires a 4-foot fence. So most engineers put that on the plan thinking it's fully compliant. Obviously, if a 5-foot fence is required, we will propose a 5-foot fence.
Ms. Krimko, let me interrupt you there, because I've always thought that we required a 5-foot fence. It seems that from talking to the zoning officer last week on another application, that the ordinance has been amended, and now the township requires a 4-foot high fence, not a 5-foot high fence.
Okay, so then we both should get a copy. So when you ask Kate for the copy of the ordinance, perhaps you can ask her to copy me as well, because for as long as I've been practicing in Ocean Township, it's always been 5 feet.
Yes.
So, and that's fine. So we'll have a compliant fence. So a couple of things. First, let me just move in first. A1 is the plot plan dated 5/22/20, and I can put on the record for the board, I'm not going to move them in because they were part of the package that were submitted. This applicant, prior to submitting the application to the board, sought first a flood hazard verification from the DEP. It was confirmed, it was issued, and then they went back and got a flood hazard applicability, which basically says that the DEP does not have jurisdiction for the plan that you're seeing because it does comply with the permit by rule, which was also in Bill's letter. Let me share my screen so I do have the engineer with me who didn't draw the plan, but actually pursued and got the permit. So just so the board can see, the lot is on Harvey Brook as indicated, and here's where the proposed pool is, the only variance being construction in a floodplain. We will stipulate, it's actually not the governing body that regulates the fence in the easement, it's your Department of Public Works. They review it and they require the fence post to be put in a sleeve. So if work needs to be done on the easement, that sleeve can be removed and the homeowner is required to sign a document to that effect. So that's something your zoning officer takes care of. If I could introduce Keith Smith and have him sworn, and we can just answer a couple quick questions and then hopefully wrap it up.
Okay, Mr. Smith, please raise your right hand. Where are you?
Right there.
Oh, there you go. Do you swear to tell the truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address in accordance and tell us what.
Keith Smith, I'm a senior vice president with French and Perello at 1800 Route 34 in Wall, New Jersey.
And you're a
And I know
licensed professional engineer?
Yes.
And you've been accepted as one in front of this board and many other boards?
Yes, that's correct.
We'll accept it. He's been before this board many times.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Keith, I gave a broad overview. You were the engineer who oversaw and submitted the application to the DEP, and we received the flood hazard verification as well as the flood hazard applicability determination?
That's correct.
Okay, and that flood hazard applicability and the verification basically established where the flood hazard elevation is on the property?
Yes, verification establishes where the flood hazard limits are on the property, which puts most of the property in the flood hazard zone.
Okay, so any construction on this property would be construction in a floodplain, except maybe for this small circle in the northwest corner,
That's
over by the
correct.
cul-de-sac?
That's correct.
Okay, and is it accurate to say that the proposed pool in any construction meets the permit by rule and therefore complies and does not require any further DEP permitting?
That's correct.
Okay, and Mr. Fitzgerald in his report had asked for some additional notes on the plan just to show the DEP identified flood hazard as opposed to the municipal flood hazard designation, and we can make that revision?
Yes.
And we would copy the board as recommended by Mr. Fitzgerald on our submission of the final plan to the DEP as required by permit by rule?
Yes.
Okay, and then lastly, to the extent that there are pine trees being removed, in the event that they meet the tree removal, tree replacement requirements, we would agree to replant those?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'd stipulate to Mr. Shephaka is we don't know today. My client has indicated to me that he does not believe that they're of that caliper, but we would agree that we would submit a revised plot plan identifying any trees that are protected under your tree removal, tree replacement, not protected, but are required to be replaced and would replace same as a condition of approval.
As long as that works for Mr. Steinberg, it works for me.
It's fine. Yes.
I think I covered everything in Bill and Jim's reports.
Okay, and are there any questions from the board? Board members?
No questions.
Are there any questions from the public?
Hi.
Yes, Cliff.
Yes, my name is Clifford Wasser, 6
Please
Fairway.
raise your right hand. I'm sorry, please raise your right hand. Mr. Wasser, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Clifford Wasser, 6 Fairway Lane, Ocean Township.
Okay, and what is your relation to this case?
I'm the adjacent property owner. I live behind the Abacasuses. The property, as you indicated, is within a floodplain, and we have significant groundwater problems. And I'm all for the pool and let them build the pool. I'm just concerned about the displacement of groundwater towards my house. I'm at lot 76 on the plan there. And I'm just concerned about displacement of water onto my property. It's just I have my pumps going 24/7, and I just want to know what issue or what will be taken, what steps will be taken to ameliorate the displacement of groundwater.
So Keith, I know that wasn't technically to Keith, but since he's the only licensed engineer here on the call tonight, Keith, why don't you address what impact, if any, this pool would have on the neighbors?
Well, as part of the plan, there is a dry well system being placed to address any additional impervious area from the site, as well as a swale that's been proposed along I guess it's the eastern property line to direct water towards the Harvey Brook to maintain that flow away from your property towards the Harvey Brook. So there are steps being taken to address any potential impacts.
And also, Keith, Mr. Fitzgerald did not have any concerns with regard to impact to the neighbors, correct, from an engineering perspective in his report?
Not in the report, no.
Yeah. And this is Jim Higgins just commenting on that. Mr. Wasser, just so you understand, the board's engineer looks at that type of thing with every application, and he didn't comment on it. So if he was concerned at all, he would have raised the flag and he would have been stomping his feet.
And just, Mr. Wasser, just so you understand, and I could call you offline, the purpose of the flood hazard and no construction is so when the brook floods, it has somewhere to go. So basically, the lot is in and of itself storage for floodwaters. So the reason it meets permit by rule is because we're not changing that and we're allowing the same floodwater. So just because it's a flood hazard area doesn't necessarily mean it's a drainage problem. It means that it serves as storage for the brook. Keith, is that a layman's accurate way to describe it?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Wasser, did that answer your question?
Yeah, just one more question. I guess the engineer and the planners took care of this, but it seems like the corner of the pool, and I don't remember the plans exactly, but it seems the corner of the pool is very close to the edge of the property. It's not?
No, it's 10 feet. It meets the minimum requirement. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. It looked like it was closer. I couldn't see. Okay.
No, I just so you know, I believe what you saw was the dry well. I think you saw the engineering for the dry well, which is going to be underground.
Also, the pool surface itself is within 10 feet. They're allowed to have a 3-foot wide walkway around the pool. So the walkway might be 7 feet from the property line.
Okay, that's fine. I just couldn't tell. All right. Good luck, Avi. Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
Yes, it's Jackie again. If it's 100-year floodplain zone, how many other properties are involved in that?
We don't have an answer to that. We only did the study as it relates to our property.
So if we have something, Jennifer, if there's something designated as a 100-year flood plan, does it seem like a wise thing to do to dig in and put a pool there? I mean, I understand why Mr. Losser would be concerned. I'm surprised more neighbors aren't on.
Again, Jackie, as you know, this is governed by the state, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and they limit what you can do within a floodplain. And an at-grade pool is permitted in a floodplain because if there's a flood, it's not going to affect the flood storage of the property. So the only one who will be impacted by a flood would be Mr. Avi Casas's pool.
Hey, Henry, it's Rick. Sorry, Henry, it's Rick Funmark. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the questioner, we didn't establish, is she contiguous to the property?
Who?
Neighboring property.
No, she lives on Deal Road, 610 Deal Road.
But but I've been part of, the Shade Tree Commission. I know that they've been concerned about the amount of trees going down in town as well, which absorbs water, and we've had a lot of flooding around.
Jackie, I'm sorry. This is not the platform to ask about trees going down. Okay, this is a platform.
They just said they were taking trees down, Mr. Sheplika.
Jack, I'm sorry. Please stop.
Stop what?
This is not the platform to talk about the Environmental Commission and trees going down. This is a platform about a variance for a pool.
Well, it sounded alarming when it started off with a 100-year floodplain zone. I mean, and then trees are coming down that absorb water. And I know that
it's not a 100-year floodplain. There's no such thing as.
It's rude when you cut me off like that.
It may be, but I'm trying to correct you so you use the right term.
Well, when I can't hear you when I'm in the middle of speaking. I'm trying to get a thought out. it's not my, we have a lot of people in town that are concerned about the amount of mature
I
trees
have to
that can.
place an objection, Mr. Shepherd. She's testifying as to other people in town. She's
I
not
understand
allowed to
that.
do
Yeah,
that.
all
She
right.
can only
Whoa, whoa,
speak as
whoa.
to her own.
Okay.
I'm testifying for
One at a
myself,
time.
but I'm saying I attend the town council
Okay,
meeting.
okay. Enough,
I
please.
attend the town
Have
council
to be
meeting.
civilized. Please stop.
Please stop
Amy,
what? Is
please,
this
everybody,
a public portion or not?
Jackie,
There
we
is
need to get back to the case. You're more than welcome to speak, but this is getting out of hand. Okay? Have a
I'm getting
civilized
cut off. I'm
conversation.
trying to
Mr.
talk
Chairman,
about
it's Rich. Can I say one thing again? So this is sometimes when I did it last meeting and I didn't mean to because process I didn't understand. But this is an adjudicatory process more than any other board you've ever been before, as opposed to the
Correct.
planning board or the town council. And my point is, cases need to go in a certain way, and they are. And I understand your point you're trying to make, but the relevance to the application is lost on me, and I think the rest of the board. So I just like to, especially in this environment of virtual everything we're trying to do, stay on this particular application and not about 100. I mean, this should be about the application, contiguous neighbors, unless there's a greater good to it, and I'm not hearing that. So I just, as a board member, would like to say that. Sorry.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. Mr. Steinberg, did you have something to say?
No, I was just, Jennifer Krimko's objection is correct. You can't tell us anything but your own opinion, Mayor, okay? And you've expressed an opinion that you feel that this may cause a problem. But
Well, this
without
was a-
It's
any
just that-
verification, may I speak?
we have other boards in town, right? So one of them is the
May I
Shade Tree
finish?
Commission.
May I
And
finish?
Okay,
Ma'am.
I have to stop this right now. This is the time for questions, not someone standing on a platform telling me that there's other boards. Jackie, do you have a question about this?
well, I had a question. I said.
What is the question? What is the
My
question?
question was, is it okay? I understood that the DEP approved it, but I was wondering why it's designated as a 100-year flood plan, because it doesn't seem to deter any construction that you're going to do. Like, I would think the fact it's a 100-year flood
No,
plan.
I object. She's making a comment. I
What is
object.
the question?
Wait, let me finish. They shouldn't be removing trees and,
That's not a question, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
this is not, Jackie, this is not a question. I'm gonna move on now. Are there any other people from the public to be heard?
well, my question might be then, what's the difference if it's a 100?
Jackie, I'm done. Jackie, stop. Stop.
I'm just posing it as a question.
You didn't ask a question. You're not asking a question.
My question then is, what is the problem putting something in a 100-year flood plan? What's the concern? What
Okay,
should be?
so
That should be directed to the applicant's engineer.
it is, but again, what I tried to do was to help you before, Jackie, not interrupt you. So you sounded more knowledgeable, is that it's not a 100-year flood plan. That's not a term. It's the 100-year flood plain.
I got it.
And that's an old ordinance term, as it's stated in the DEP. It's the flood hazard area. So Keith, what can you do in the flood hazard area, and what can't you do in the flood hazard area? And why is this acceptable, and why won't this have an impact on flooding? And please be as brief as possible.
Sure. So, well, basically what you had expressed before is true. Within a floodplain, a flood hazard area, you cannot fill with a flood hazard area without giving an equal or offsetting storage area. They want to maintain the flood storage within that area. In this case, the pool is at or below the existing grade, and there's no impact to the flood storage, which is why.
So let me ask, so Keith, so go a step further. If you were to construct a house in the flood hazard area, you would have to create flood storage to the same volume elsewhere on the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's why they're protected, because as I stated earlier, when I was explaining to Mr. Wasser, The flood hazard area is protected because it provides flood storage for the neighboring streams and waterways when they
Correct.
overflow. And so this pool will have no negative impact on the intent and purpose of protecting a flood hazard area.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing, Worrell.
Well, as much as I would love the public to be closed, Mr. Shepherd, I believe you do have to open it for public comment.
Yes.
Yes.
I am opening now the public hearing for public comments. Are there any public comments? Okay. Everyone from the board is satisfied? No more questions from the board? Okay. Now, Mr. Worrell,
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
need a second?
Malta second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Nazzi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. I need action on this case?
I move for a positive resolution.
Need a second?
Malta second.
Who was
Amy,
the
please
second?
call
I'm
the roll.
sorry.
Mr. Malta.
Van Wagner to start.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Ms. Kripko, thank you very much,
Thank you very much and have a good evening, everybody.
too. That brings us to case number 3, which is case number 5, Kevin Smith, block 31, lot 46, 2011 Sun Street, Oakhurst, R4. This is an application to construct a 12 by 24 shed within the required rear yard setbacks. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Higgins, do you have a report?
Yeah, it's very brief. Basically, the applicant wants to put a 24-foot by 12-foot fence, a shed rather, in his rear yard. This property is a unique property. It's located at the end of Picton Street, and it is also abuts Picton Place, which is an unimproved dead-end street. The rear of the property abuts the high school stadium. The northern part of the property abuts the high school parking lot and bus depot. And then the southern part of the property abuts Picton Place, which is a vacant street. What the applicant's proposing makes sense. I don't see any substantial negative impact. I've suggested that the applicant and his neighbor apply to the Township Council to have Picton Place vacated, in which case the setback, the 1-foot setback on the south side of the site would actually become a conforming setback. And the only variance would be the 4-foot setback from the high school stadium property. So really, I just don't see any problem with the application.
Okay, do you have a report from Bill at all?
Yeah, Bill basically has absolutely no problem with it. He basically
Okay.
says the same thing I said.
Mr. Smith, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Kevin Smith, 2011 Picton Street.
Okay? Mr. Smith, tell us what you want to do.
So in August, I have a shed on my property right now. It is a 10 by 14 or so shed. In August, we had a storm come through and I had a large tree branch fall on the top of the shed, which has left a hole in it. And I'm leaking onto like my lawnmower and equipment. And I'm just looking to install a larger shed that is just not in the middle of my yard. I do have a well system in my property, and I do have 2 manholes as well as some larger oak trees throughout my property. So the location that I'm requesting is kind of set off into the corner that backs up to the stadium and gives me the largest use of my property.
Okay? So the shed is for storage?
Yes,
Okay.
for personal storage, yes.
And you have nowhere else to store this equipment?
As in, like right now it's inside the shed. I just have it covered in tarps, the equipment.
Right, but you don't have anywhere to store it internally in your home?
No, I mean, we have a garage, but it's not, I have lawnmowers, as well as snow blowers and like generators. So my garage is predominantly used for other in-house storage, not equipment.
Okay. What will the shed be constructed of?
It's a wood shed, so it's going to be an Amish prefabricated shed. It's a wooden shed, shingle roof. I guess
Okay.
2x6s, I guess, or 2x4s.
Okay.
I
And
have
the shed is ground laid, or is the shed on?
It would be laid on a pad, on a gravel pad.
Okay. And does this
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what building code requirements for that size shed we have.
Okay, they would have to anchor it to withhold 110 mile-an-hour winds because it's over 200 square feet.
So if the board is desirous of approving the shed and its location and the variances, would be subject to building code requirements for installation.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you understand that you're going to have to anchor that shed down?
I wasn't aware of that, but I wrote myself a note.
So you're gonna have to get a building permit
You
for it.
have to get a building permit, that's all.
You're going to need a building permit.
Okay.
Come with all those requirements.
Okay. Does the shed match the house in any way, the color of the shed, or?
It is I mean, I didn't order it yet, so right now I was gonna go with like a light gray and then like a light gray shingle, so pretty neutral colors.
Okay.
My house is like a tan, and my roof is like a dark charcoal color.
Okay. So you're using it basically for storage?
Yes, for storage.
Okay. No electric going there, no water going there? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Any comments from the public? Oh, good. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I need a second.
That's a second.
I need action on this, and remember, we need, Mr. Fitzgerald, we need a building permit, correct? I'm sorry, Mr. Steinberg, we need a,
Yeah, well, it's definitely he needs a building permit, and it's gonna have some code requirements. That'll be a condition.
right, okay, that'll be part of the resolution.
I move a positive resolution with the conditions that the building permits be obviously approved per Mark's suggestion.
Okay.
I need a second.
We didn't close the meeting yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we did.
I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting. Can someone please offer that?
It's been offered, we just have to vote.
Right.
I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
I'm sorry, I think I think we offered it. Amy, please call the roll. I'm sorry.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd,
Yes. I need action on this, please.
Well, I had made the previous motion. I'll make it again for approval based upon the conditions that Mark outlined. If you
I need
want
a
to
second.
still outline.
Further seconds.
Seconds.
Mr. Fuller, second. Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd,
Yes. I'd like to thank the board members, the professionals tonight. Thank you very much. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a
Okay.
motion, please?
Mr. Sheffica, before you move, I'd like Mark, yourself, and Amy to stay on the meeting once it's closed, if you don't mind.
That would be fine.
Thank you.
I move to close the meeting, adjourn.
Need a second?
Second.
Amy,
Second,
please
Beal.
call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Rich?
Mr. Van Wagner,
He
I think he's
left.
gone.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes, thank you again.